What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Blue Chip Prospect. I've been working the last few days on a redraft of the last 5 or 6 years for my podcast, and while I wasn't planning to revisit the draft that just happened less than a year ago, things changed. A surprising number of players have already outperformed their draft spots, and I thought it'd be fun to just take a quick look at how things might shake out in a redraft. So, let's dive in. But before we get started, please take the time to like and subscribe if you like Prospect and Habs content, because that's basically what I do. And now that that's out the way, let's get into it. So, the top 4 that I had in my final ranking before the draft basically stays intact. I had Celebrini, Demidov, Bouillon, and Dickinson in that order. And in my opinion, I'd still take those players in that order compared to the actual draft where Celebrini, Levshunov, Seneca, and Lindstrom were picked 1 to 4. The fact that Bouillon and Dickinson were picked outside the top 10 was just completely crazy to me, and I can't see a reason why they wouldn't be top 5 in a redraft. Both have first pair and first power play potential. They're not perfect defensemen by any means, but Bouillon lack size and Dickinson lack consistency in the decision-making department, but I can't see too many arguments for why they shouldn't be top 5. And the fact that Demidov wasn't picked with the second, third, or fourth pick is even crazier to me. Most people had Demidov at 2 for good reasons, and the ones who didn't were mostly focusing a little bit too much on the weird skating and the SKA factor. But no one in this draft has Demidov offensive potential. So for that reason, number 2 was the way to go and is still the way to go. For San Jose, who picked both Celebrini and Dickinson, it's looking really good and really similar to Ottawa getting Stützle and Sanderson in 2020, but on steroids. Franchise-altering stuff right there. At number 5, I have Seneca, who makes a big jump from my own ranking where I had him 11, but also not quite top 3. The potential with Seneca is through the roof, and the guy has one of the most tantalizing skill set as a 6'4" winger with elite handling skills and high-end playmaking skills, but he's still a winger, and I don't think he has Demidov potential, probably not that close actually, but some type of Matt Boldy in the making or something around that. Seneca is followed by Berkeley Catton at number 6, who was taken 8th overall and who I had 5th in my final ranking. Personally, I think it's pretty close between him and Beckett Seneca, but obviously one being 6'4", while the other one is 5'10". Beckett is more suited to handle the rigors of the NHL, even though Catton is putting up back-to-back 100 plus point season in the dub. Then I have Lev Shunov, Parek, and Tijiginla at 7, 8, and 9 respectively, and all those players from 5 to 9 are not exactly all interchangeable, but they're all pretty close. If someone told me they prefer Lev Shunov over Catton or something like that, I would understand it, and I think it's a fair assessment. Lev Shunov isn't breaking any records or anything like that, but he's quietly putting up together a solid season. He's solid defensively, he skates really well, has the size, physicality, and athleticism to go places in the NHL, and he shoots right. He's just a very, very solid player, and he's putting up numbers on par with Reinbacher in his end-of-season AHL stint last year, or Moritz Seider in his draft +1. On the other hand, Parek is breaking every record or everything on the ice, but he's also an all-offense defenseman with some of the best hockey sense out there, but he's only offense. He doesn't have that competitive fire that seems to drive players like Hughes, Makar, or even Hudson. He's more like an Evan Bouchard without the size but much better feet, an all-offense player who looks about as solid as an overcooked spaghetti or something like that in his own zone, but overall still improving defensively. And Tij, well, he's Tij, a dual threat player with sick hands who's going to work his butt off and be first on every puck, dig for pucks in the corner, disrupt plays on the forecheck, play hard, play through contacts, initiate contacts on every occasion. Just the better or the more naturally skilled version of this year's Carter Bear. After that, we have the first big jump with Liam Greentree, who jumps from 26 to number 10. I had him 16th because the skill and size combo was just too spectacular to pass on, but the feet were a bit of an issue last season. But he's got more explosive, and he has shown separation speed in transition this season. The guy is putting up another great season with 110 plus point, playing all situation, bringing a mix of power and playmaking. So Ellie must be pretty stoked about that pick. And now we closed last year's top 10 with Yakimchuk, Silayev, and Lindstrom at 11, 12, and 13 respectively. Yakimchuk and Lindstrom, who were picked 7th and 4th overall, are still very intriguing players in my opinion. They both have a chance to get back into the top 10 in a future redraft. Lindstrom, who I had 9th, hasn't played in forever, so I can't really put him that high on the list, but I also can't count him down the list too much. The skill set The style, the production, when he played last season were all top 6 NHL level. Yakemchuk, who was one of my favorite players to watch last season, is having a bit of a slower year, but is 6'4", right shot D with a heavy shot, crazy hands, physicality for days, is a type of player that could really hit if his skating and defensive reads gets a little bit of a jump. Silayev, who had 6, was projecting as a 6'7" high-end skating defensive wall with a sudden breakout game, and basically nothing has changed. Some players jumped in front of him because they're more impressive, but honestly, Silayev is going to be one hell of a player. And then we follow this up with 3 players moving up the list, including 2 with major jumps, and those players are Cole Hudson, Michael Hage, and Igor Chernyshov at 14, 15, and 16. Cole Hudson jumps 29 spots from 43 to 14th overall. I don't think he's as smart defensively, especially with his stick as his brother. I also don't think he has the same vision and puck skills as his brother, but it's also not like 3 tiers below either. But he's also an inch taller. If that changes anything, he has a little bit of a better shot. He's a bit quicker on his feet, and he has the same fire burning under him. I can almost guarantee that if I do another redraft next year, he'll be in the top 10. That's just the Hudson way. When in doubt, you just pick a Hudson. As for Hage, who I had 17 and was picked 21st overall, he jumps to number 15. Hage basically built on everything from last season. He's still fast, but he plays faster. He's still not heavy, but he plays heavier. And the effort level is also more consistent, and he applies himself in all 3 zones. Very good pick for the Habs right there, but even better is San Jose with 3rd player in the top 16 in my redraft with Chernyshov, who I had 19th and was picked 33rd overall. He's big, strong, not the hardest player to play against physically, but very skilled at a standstill or in full flight. Skilled passer, skilled shooter with plus level skating and motor. I'm jealous, basically. Next, 17 and 18, I have Konsta Elenius and Michael Brandsegg-Nigar, who both fell just a couple of spots. While I wasn't the highest on Elenius last season, slotting him at 13, I always had that feeling that he might be one of those players that make you regret pushing him down the list. The same feeling I had with Cole Hudson, and I still have it with Elenius sometimes because he can be one hell of a playmaker and driver some nights with top 6 potential, but personally, while he adapted to the North American ice without any issue, I didn't see that much progression in his game. And for Michael Brandsegg-Nigar, I had him at the exact same spot as I have him now. Complementary top 6, middle 6 player, shoots heavy, plays heavy, tracks the whole 200 feet of the ice, and punishes player on the offensive forecheck. More of a finisher than a creator, but a pain to play against. I love him. And at number 19, Washington does it again. Jumping from 75th to 19, we got Protas number 2. While his 6'6" brother is putting up huge numbers in the NHL in Washington, Ilya, the 6'5" version of him, is putting up huge numbers in the OHL. The skating, while still not a strength, isn't nearly as bad as last season in the USHL. He's got a refined playmaking game with quick one-touch passes as well as patient, drawing in defenders, slip passes kind of playmaking style too. Plus the size, the chaos in the low slot. He's got a lot going for him to follow a similar path to his brother, which is a problem. Freaking Washington, man, they just know what they're doing when it comes to draft. And at number 20, I got Jet Luchenko, who's a jump from where I had him at 31st, but a fall from where he was picked at 13th overall. Luchenko is all speed and motor. That's the name of his game. He's a solid short pass playmaker and moves the play closer to the net on every occasion. I expect him to play on the PK in the NHL too, but I don't see what the Flyers saw, even though he will be a very solid player in the NHL. And next, we got Trevor Connolly at number 21, who's a drop from where I had him at 10th overall, but not that much from where he was picked by Vegas at number 19th. I'm pretty confident he will move up this list in the next couple of years because he's got the dual threat skills, the speed, the compete, the work ethic, even in the D zone. I saw him a couple of weeks ago against Boston College and he looked like a star on the ice. He was everywhere, a constant offensive threat off the rush and off the cycle, but ended up with nothing on the scoreboard. I'm still super duper high on him and he could easily be way higher on this list, but I contained myself and I tried to strike a balance of certainty versus potential. But make no mistake, the stats definitely don't say the whole story about Connolly. The next two players are two players who don't move much from either my list or where they were picked in the draft. At 22 and 23, I have Stian Solberg and Yegor Surin, who were picked 23rd and 22nd respectively, and who I had 22nd and 20th on my list last season. Solberg is basically a Alex Romanov type of player in a more aggressive and violent way. Very solid skater, solid defensively, moves the puck well up the ice but might need to execute faster on a breakout. He can land very sneaky and well-timed explosive hits. He's a crushing, overwhelming board presence. Probably won't be putting up more than 20 or 25 points in the NHL, but has a track to a top 4 roles if he keeps developing this way. Surin, on the other hand, doesn't play as much as I would like to have a good evaluation, but he makes the most of his time on the ice. Does he have the best vision out there? No, I would say, but he has the puck skills, a solid shot, a solid feed, and bulldoze himself through contacts. He's very hard to contain even in the KHL against men, and he's still 18 years old until August. Seems like a perfect bumper player in the future, a la Bo or Vat Light type of player. He was one of my favorite last season, and I'm even more optimistic to see how he carries himself in the KHL. Next, I got Cole Yzerman at 24, which is a drop from my 14 and also a drop from where the Owls took him at 20th. It's a weird one with this guy. Yzerman has basically remained the exact same player for 3 years now with basically no progression whatsoever. While a lot of people say he's only a shot, and that's somewhat true, the guy is also competitive. He hits like a train, forecheck and disrupt the breakout. He back checks. He plays at 100% effort. He's not floating on the ice, but nothing comes out of it ever. The guy could score 35 or 40 goals in the NHL with the quality of his shot on the power play. He's very, very Liney-like as a player, not necessarily in style, but in effectiveness. If that's your jam, then Yzerman is your guy and could very well score at the same level as Patrick Laine. I couldn't really choose between the next two players, so I kind of just bundled them up together at 25 and 26. So I have Cole Baudouin and Sacha Boisvert. Two different players, but two-way centers who approaches the game differently. Cole Baudouin creates offense down low in the slot or from getting pucks in the corner, followed by smart and quicker distribution of the puck. He's also very calculated in his physicality and very disruptive. Basically, he projects as a third-line center. Boisvert has a little bit more potential and a little bit more pop in his offensive game. He has a solid shot, anticipates plays and jumps into space, gets to the net too. Baudouin is the more physical, more disruptive two-way player, while Boisvert is the more offensively smart with a better finishing touch two-way player. So here at 27 is where it started to be complicated because I have about 1 million players in the same tier, some with more certainty and some with more potential, but it kind of goes like this. At 27 and 28, I got two defensemen that I really liked last season, and those are Harrison Brunicky and Adam Kleber. Brunicky is a 6'3" right shot D who's very fluid on his skate, can move the puck up the ice with crisp passes, and can make some plays at the offensive blue line. He sometimes have some brain cramps, but he's a project. I had him 35, and I think he deserved to move up a couple spots. Kleber, on the other hand, is a little less spectacular, but he's a 6'6" right shot D who also skates well and can cover so much ice with his length and skating. And just like Brunicky, is a project, but he's smart. He plays with his heads up. Good retrievals, good breakout, good physicality, and was called up to play for USA in the U20s, so that's not nothing. I had Kleber in the first round at 29 last year, so he's basically moving up one spot. It's going to take a while, but I think there's something there. And we follow this up with Kieran Walton and Lucas Fischer at 29 and 30. To anyone who watched Walton last season, his production isn't that much of a surprise. Limited ice time, very limited skating and comprehension on how to use his body made him a 6th round pick by the Jets, 187th to be exact. But if you spend some time watching Musty or Dvorsky to follow up on the draft or Villeneuve for the current draft last season, there's no way you didn't see this giant 6'6" uncoordinated, flashing well above average playmaking and puck skills. There's a long way to go, but the skating is coming together, and so is his ability to use his body in traffic or in protection to make plays. He's going to finish the season with close to 100 points and 40 goals while improving in all areas that he needed to. Very solid pick by the Jets, and that's not their only one. They also have Kevin He as a 4th round pick in my honorable mention for this list. Fisher, on the other hand, is a second-round pick by the Blues who also knocked it out the park in the later rounds with 3 players in my honorable mention, is another long-term project, and is another big 6'3" fluid skating defenseman. While he's the most all over the place defenseman in my ranking, he has the highest potential of any of my late first round big D I've listed. Fisher was basically a week from being eligible for this year's draft, and he plays for Sarnia, so it's kind of tough to look good. But from defense to transition and offense, he flashed potential in all 3 facets of the game. I had him 58 last season, so a jump from end of second to end of first is not too bad for him. And we finish this up with Nikita Artamonov at 31 and Julius Mutinen at 32. Artamonov is doing really, really well in the KHL. He's 6th in the KHL history for points per game for a draft plus 1 player. But when I watched him, I find it hard to explain why he's being so productive. It's obvious the guy is a hard-working winger with playmaking skills and a finishing touch at the net. But I didn't really like a couple of games that I've seen this season. So I have him low in the first, but I think there could be some kind of Arvidsson in there with some more cutbacks and more east-west play as opposed to Arvidsson. But still, I had him at 25, so pretty consistent, and he was picked 50th by Carolina, so it's a good gamble. As for Miettinen, I always really liked his play and his size as a 6'4" two-way center. I had him 26 last season, so again, there's consistency in some of my rankings. Miettinen has some very decent soft skills, a hard and heavy shot, hands around the net, and physicality, but the skating needed significant work. I think it's rounding out, but it's not perfect, and it still needs to be a focus for the next few seasons. But if it all goes well, there's an Adam Laurie in there or something around that, which would be an excellent pick by Seattle with the 40th pick. In the end, there was many players in my honorable mentions. Players like Yegorov, Gridden, Kevin He, Steady Stiga, Paris Sack, Terrence Smith, Thomas Mersick are all players who deserve to be in the conversation, and probably a lot of other players I'm forgetting. But 2024 was a great draft at the top, but also very deep with solid players all the way up to my 50s, even maybe 60s. I didn't even talk about players like Marcus, Montgomery, Morelli, Vanacker, etc. So just a lot of players to choose from. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like or subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.